Hey guys, how's it going today? I'm really excited because I've got a guest on my show today on my video, and that's Ruben Diaz. You guys know him really well. I went around the world with him. Ruben is a serial entrepreneur. He's built and sold many businesses in his life. His current job, or things that keep him busy, is he invests in tech startups. And he currently owns two Robinson helicopters, and he leases them back to us. I wanted to do a video today about if you're an entrepreneur or a professional and you're in the market and you're kind of thinking about purchasing a helicopter, is that right for you? And so I wanted to get Ruben on the call. We're on a Zoom call right now, and so I've got Ruben here. How's it going, Ruben?
Hey, Misha, how's it going? It's so good to be back together, eh?
It's awesome. It's really good in a virtual way this time, but it's all good. I've got a few questions that I want to ask you, and the first one is, when do you think, as an owner of a helicopter right now, when you were if you're thinking back to when you first purchased a helicopter, when do you think is the right time for someone like yourself to buy a helicopter?
There you go. You start with the toughest question, right?
That's
the one that is really hard to answer, and but I'll go a little bit, piece by piece, to dismantle this important question. The timing is not really the right timing for everybody. It has to do really with your particular case. I think that this type of decision is more of the decision that you have for the right moment, meaning that it's not something you go to the supermarket and buy and you're ready to go, right? There's a lot of things around it. So for myself, I wanted to probably buy a helicopter, not really a helicopter, but I think I told you this dream that I had when I was a kid, going to Uruguay, to South Africa. So I had this dream of buying a machine that would be a flying machine. I bought an airplane in Portugal, a couple of airplanes, then I sold them. Then when it came to BC, then I got into helicopters. So the right time you're buying a helicopter is really has to do with a couple of things. One is, are you really conscious of what's called the total cost of ownership? We'll go over that, okay? Total cost of ownership of something. And then, is it actually going to be an asset or liability? That's interesting concept, right? Because many things that we buy, anything that I buy, I always think, is it going to be an asset or a liability? You can buy a house and it could be an asset and it could be a liability. You can even buy a car, it can be an asset, liability. Most of our cars are liabilities, right? Because we have a cost associated with it and there's no revenue to it, okay? That's the difference. So assets, they bring value, they bring revenue, and they bring possible wealth through that investment. So for me, a helicopter made sense with a couple of things were aligned.
Right. And what would you say was your motivation behind buying a helicopter? I know that I've heard this story before, but I think people would find it really super interesting for you specifically, what your motivation was for buying a helicopter.
Yeah, I remember the day that a common friend that we have, he was in a property near Lillooet, BC, British Columbia, and we were together, and he showed me his helicopter, and I look at it, and I loved always helicopters, but would they make sense? Would they be meaningful for myself, right? And then I look around, and we're in this amazing terrain, okay? We look around, there were mountains all over the place, and then I saw the helicopter there. And I was used to airplanes when you go airport to airport. But in this case, this guy was landing on a backyard, very confined space. So I look at it and say, this makes sense. Why? Because the terrain made sense for me. So the terrain called for a transportation that will be adapted to that terrain. So the opportunity to buy a helicopter made sense because of the context of using the machine. I think, for example, that if you're thinking of a flying machine, let's put it this way, airplane or balloon or whatever, or a helicopter, if you're flying from an airport to airport, probably doesn't make a lot of sense to buy a helicopter, So
right.
It's the
and that's what you had in Portugal, and that made sense there, right?
Sorry?
That's what you had in Portugal, and it made sense for you there, but not so much in BC, right?
Exactly, right? Because if you're flying from an airport to an airport, it's fun to fly a helicopter. It's really fun, independently of its use. It's fun. one thing is fun. Another thing is what's the use I'm going to put it to for my specific case. So I look at the terrain and look at what BC is and what I could do with it. So many places I could fly, so many places I could explore, and I could land absolutely anywhere I could imagine. And also the particulars of the country, because not all the countries are the same, as we know. Some countries could limit helicopter landings, right? Most of them do in Europe, actually. But in Canada, I think it's paradise. So you can land a helicopter in Canada pretty much anywhere that is not restricted for some specific reason. So that made sense to me. It triggered of, okay, here I have a machine that can fly me around in a very clear context for me for the use.
Right, exactly. And so in your mind, what conditions needed to be met for you to actually pull the trigger and say, you know what, I'm going to buy a helicopter from a financial point of view? Because we're going to talk a little bit more from the financial things. We're going to shift gears now from the emotional side to the kind of the dollars and cents part of it.
Right. When I wanted to fly, when I saw this opportunity to fly around, as I said, in terrain, I needed a license, right? I need to get a license first. I had an airplane license. I needed a helicopter license. So when I think I was introduced by a common friend. Yes, we introduced by a common friend. And I talked with you, and you were the one responsible for this, okay? Because you told me.
Oh no, not me! You're gonna put it all on me.
Yeah, but then I will talk a little bit about advice and what advice I give to others. And there's a little thing that I want to share about that. But basically, I don't think that you gave me advice. You gave me something which is, I'm going to reveal it now, which is basically gave me the opportunity to explore my wisdom, okay? So you gave me some hints so I could, in a wise way, make a decision. Why am I saying this? You told me, listen, if you buy a helicopter, we actually need a helicopter to lease. And if you buy it, it's going to be yours. You lease it to us, and we're probably going to have a win-win deal between us, right? And that's the things that I like, okay? I'm looking at this opportunity. I want to fly around. I want to go places. But listen, how much money I'm going to spend, right? How much I'm going to sacrifice, how much liability I'm going to put on that thing that I'm going to buy. I wanted to turn it into an asset. So I went into buying this and turning it into an asset, and we did let me call it a sweet deal between us, right? Because you needed an asset for your business, and I could lease it to you so I could have an income through it. So the right moment and the specifics of that purchase was initially the R44, right? Foxtrot Alpha Yankee Quebec, right? That then you got it later from Montreal, and you pick it up for me. Remember that?
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And then later, when we started thinking about the world trip, one day I was browsing some opportunities. I thought, man, I don't think I'm going to be comfortable on R44. Many reasons. We don't have time for that. But basically, I was looking at it, and I think, okay, what about the R66? And it seemed as a good opportunity. And I remember I went to a brother, and I showed him this specific one that was for sale, right? And
the one that you got, yeah.
And there you go. The floats were a specific application for the need that we wanted. I didn't want to go around the world without floats. Okay, remember that we discussed that? So I saw the floats there, I connected. Man, this machine has only 170 hours. I remember that. So the specific use case, in Robinson's, as we know, we have 12 years, we have about 2,200 hours. And so that was the time available made sense for the specific use case. So your brother, I remember your brother said, go buy it, right? He was funny, right? Saying this, oh man, go buy it. And he didn't know what he was saying because I went and bought it, right? We were both of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
in a short amount of time after that. So that leads us right into the next one is, for you, when you think about this as an asset versus liability, what would you consider to be the total cost of ownership of a helicopter?
Well, that really depends on your case, right? Because you have what's called a CapEx, capital expenditure. So how much capital are you going to apply to purchase that asset? In this case, I consider it an asset because it generates revenue. But you could put money into a CapEx expenditure that will turn into a liability, meaning that everything is going to outflow, no inflow, right? So in this specific case, it was an asset. And the total cost of ownership, you have to consider several things. First of all, you buy this asset, you have to keep it up. So you have to maintain it, independent if you fly or not. you know better than anybody, you have to do those annual inspections, right? And then also how many hours you're gonna fly the helicopter will make it cheaper to fly per hour, because there are some fixed costs. They're going to be diluted on those hours that you're going to fly. In specifics, for example, insurance, right? So you got to think about insurance. How much is the insurance going to cost you? And that insurance is going to be, because it's fixed cost, not dependent on the number of hours, is going to be divided by the number of hours that you think you're going to fly throughout the years in that specific year that you're analyzing as a profit and loss, right? And so there are regular maintenance costs that you have in a helicopter. Then you have also unpredictable costs, right? Things can happen. Things break that are not planned. So the total cost of ownership is the capital expenditure that you have and also the operating cost. And in operating cost, you also have fixed costs, independent if you fly or not, and you have variable costs. Variable costs are associated with the number of hours that you fly. So in a nutshell, there's many details, but you have this total cost of ownership that you're going to be responsible for. And again, in helicopters, is independent if you fly or not.
Right, exactly. And if you were talking to an audience of people and a bunch of them were shooting questions at you, and one of them said, what is the right type of helicopter for me to buy? What kind of answer would you give them?
Okay, so I remember, I hope my wife won't see this vlog. Why? Because so we have 2 kids, grown-up kids, and I remember when I bought my first airplane, I had 4 seats, right? And we had 2 kids, and I was telling my wife, let's not have any more kids because they don't fit in the airplane, right?
Yeah.
So you see, it depends on your specific use case. And when I bought the 44, we were 4, but it seemed a little bit tight in some circumstances. I've flown the 66 several times with 5 people inside. So the number of seats is really important for me. And also the comfort level that I have. When I saw this, it's a great helicopter, but the Bell 206 with that column in the middle, right? It's a great helicopter for a specific use case of work, but probably not the most comfortable sightseeing helicopter, right? So the 66 was a good option in terms of value cost, because you can go for an A-star, obviously, you can really shoot for the moon in other helicopters, but there is a sweet spot between what you want to achieve and the total cost of ownership. So the capital expenditure, the operating cost, fixed and variable costs. So all that together, will you a use case, one thing very important, number of seats and the range of the helicopter and what's going to cost to fly that helicopter. And for me, it made sense for the 66.
Okay. That's awesome. I've got a couple more questions. I want to wrap this up pretty quick here, but this is kind of a fun one. What would you consider to be the holy grail of buying a helicopter, or even any other major expenditure or investment in somebody's life? What would you think about that?
I think that a little bit here and there we have already answered that, but I want to focus it again. It's just a philosophy of life that I have. The holy grail is when you mix pleasure with business. And why am I saying this? Is if you buy a boat, and actually I have another idea. I think I never shared this with you. I pitched to 3 or 4 friends. They're not there yet, but I want to convince them someday. I have done a couple of trips on a catamaran, right? So a sailing boat with always the same friends. And I always tell these guys, why are we renting this thing, right? And why don't we get together and buy this little piece, each one of us put some money in the capital expenditure, and then let's rent it out. Let's do a little company that we have this sailboat going around the world with a crew, and we can fly to a certain place, use it, come back, and when we're not using it, we rent it out, we lease it, right? So we have a small business, not a huge business. I'm not going to do a 10, we don't know, but a 10 yacht business. I want to consider every single fun thing that I can get involved with. It gives good pleasure. It's a good thing that you're going to use it. It's a healthy pleasure you have. I want to associate it with a revenue generating opportunity. So I think the holy grail is when you mix a fun with business, and business pays partially, totally, or sometimes can even give a profit. So then you feel good because you have this asset that is providing you a value of having a lot of fun, utility for yourself, and at the same time paying it off and possibly make a profit. That's the holy grail.
I love it. That's really good. I have one more question for you, and then we're going to finish it off. Would you suggest for anybody to buy a helicopter? If you had the money in your bank and you said, you know what, I'm looking to buy something a bit outlandish, extravagant, would you just say, yeah, a helicopter for sure is the right choice?
That's a great question. You know the answer?
What?
No.
Why not?
Okay, let me explain the no, right? Okay. Let me explain the no.
Okay.
There's a little twist here, okay? There's
Okay.
a difference between giving advice and giving guidance for you to have wisdom. Okay?
Yep.
Advice is telling me what you should do. And giving you guidance for you to have the wisdom is for you to be independent, think with your mind, and then apply to your case things that I know that you might share with me or things that I don't know. So you receive inputs from people that have more experience, have done it, all that stuff, but it's your decision. So I should not end this vlog saying, guys, go buy the helicopter. It's amazing. You're gonna have a lot of fun. Yes, you're gonna have a lot of fun, but also you're gonna have a lot of responsibility. And most of that responsibility is gonna be financial responsibility. So it depends on your use case. It depends on your specifics. If you think that you are at the stage of life that you're not gonna get into debt. By the way, I didn't buy these things with debt. I'm not a believer in debt. There's a lot of discussion about debt. That's probably for another opportunity of a discussion, another topic. But when you get into debt to have pleasure, those things don't match. Okay, for me, they don't match. They could match for somebody else. For me, it has never matched. I've never done it. So it's that particular situation of application for your use case, where you're at life. I'm getting to be 50, and I dreamed about this when I was a really small kid. And I was 20s, I was 30s, I was 40s. I didn't have a helicopter, but I always think about it, dreaming about it. You know what? The most incredible thing you can have is dream about things that you have not achieved yet. Once you achieve that, it's great. But the moment, the journey to achieve that is sometimes you get more pleasure out of it. You remember those moments of sharing things that you want to achieve compared to now I have it, now what, right? So that's the tone I think that we could end this, is that you have really to think where you are, if it makes sense to you, and if it doesn't make sense now, and if you have that dream, just keep it, nurture it, live it. Don't burn the match, and don't forget these moments, because you are planning for it. Your mind you have the mindset for it, and one day, probably yes, probably not, but at least you have that journey. That makes a lot of difference. And listen, I didn't buy a helicopter because my parents were super rich and I got it when I was 18 and I flew around, okay? This applies to anybody. So some comments that might come in your vlog saying, oh, you're right because you have it. Oh, you're right. No. Listen, I've gone through the journey, and I really appeal to you that you go through the journey, because it's a lot of fun to dream about something you want to achieve.
I love it. Amazing. That's an awesome place to finish. I really appreciate your time, Ruben. I think that people that are watching this are going to find a lot of value in it, and really probably have some things to think about as well. So I think we're going to leave it there. Thanks so much for your time, Ruben. It was great. Definitely a pleasure. And I want to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of this one. This was a completely different style vlog for me. But I really enjoyed it, and we might do more of this kind of thing as well in the future. So let me know what you guys thought. Give this video a like, share it with somebody that you think would find this interesting. If you think there's somebody that is interested in purchasing a helicopter, or if you're currently thinking of purchasing a helicopter, let me know what type of helicopter you would like to purchase. If you have questions, let me know about it, and I can see if I can help you guys out, just to give a little bit of advice and so forth. But until next time, you guys, we're going to talk to you later. See ya.